Thank you for joining us for episode number 4 of BTC. I'm here with Faisal. Faisal, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
I'm good, thank you. It's been a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back. And we're here really to talk about some of the common terms that you hear in the space and some of the misconceptions that you might have about things like an address or a wallet and what they mean. And this is really a show that's going to focus on being an informed crypto user, because if you're informed and you're educated, then we could demand more from the exchanges, demand better service, but you need to be educated in order to have certain demands. So, let's dive right in.
A few announcements, if you will, Nako. The RemTech Awards are being held in Kuala Lumpur from May 8th to May 10th, and the IMTC EMEA, which is being held in Brussels this year, will be on 16th through 18th of May. I will be attending IMTC EMEA in Brussels, so if you're attending, please come and say hello. However, before that, I will be hosting the Innovation Jam by Terminos in Abu Dhabi on the 15th of April. And on the 16th of April, we'll be moderating a panel on payments at Seamless in Dubai. If you're in either of the shows, please step forward and say hello. It's always nice to meet people. This podcast has been made possible by support from Terminos. Terminos is the top-tier core banking software provider to 41 of the top 50 financial institutions worldwide. Terminos has been guiding financial institutions towards their digital future for more than 20 years. Learn more at terminos.com. Also supporting our podcast is Stellar. Stellar is a platform that connects banks, payment systems, and people, integrate to move money quickly, reliably, and at almost no cost. For more information, visit stellar.org. That's STELLAR.org. For legal disclosure regarding this podcast, please review the message at the end of the show. So, tell us about what are we going to learn today?
All right, so we're going to learn why the terms are so terrible in this space. I mean, everyone kind of agrees that some of the terms that we use don't make a lot of sense in crypto, but they were transferred over and now we're stuck with them. But at least, we can try and understand what they mean, and make sure that we have a better understanding of the technology, even if you're not technical. Because as you guys know, I'm a recruiter. I'm not a developer. So I'm also learning all of this from a very non-technical perspective. And if I can understand it, so can you. So let's start with the addresses.
Now, I'm assuming an address, you mean the Bitcoin address, right?
Yes, the Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin address, your Ethereum address. So people will ask you for your address. And that word, I wish we had a better term. But here, it is what it is. Because when I think of an address, for me, I automatically think of an email address and that it would look like an email address. But it's this very intimidating, cryptic looking,
very long email address over here, right?
Yeah, and you can't memorize it. That's another thing, right?
And there isn't even a standard Nako. That's the whole thing. So a Bitcoin address could be different from an Ethereum address, could be different from a Cardano wallet address, could be different from a Tezos wallet address. How does it even know? And not to mention, we have 2 types of an address. With each address, there's the public address and then there's the private address or something, right?
Yes, exactly. And when you say when you say an address to somebody, you automatically assume that it's something you can memorize, right? It's just normal. Like, how could you not know your own address? So if somebody asks you for your Bitcoin address, you can't possibly say it. You just can't. You have to literally copy and paste it, and you really have to double check. So it's just a terrible word. But there are a sort of a standardized look to a Bitcoin address. And if you're using a SegWit address, all SegWit addresses start with 3. Now, if I'm getting this wrong and a developer hears me, please correct me. But from what I've read, the SegWit addresses begin with 3, and the legacy chain address begins with a 1. So for those of you who are still complaining about the high fees, switch to a SegWit address and it will be a lot less. So if you look at your Bitcoin address and it begins with a 1, it means you're still on the legacy chain. So switch and get an address that begins with a 3.
As
So that's the
simple as
first
that?
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, you just cooled me today, right now. How cool is that?
Oh, great. Well, I'm glad I'm glad I can help.
Well, this is a fantastic. I never knew that, Nako. Thank you very much. So, if you have a original Bitcoin address that starts with a 1 something, that's the legacy, and 3 is the SegWit. And if you switch to 3, transactions are executed much faster, correct?
Yes, correct. Yep. So then you've got the private address that you mentioned, right? And sometimes this is also called a private key. Sometimes you have something called a private seed. So all of these terms mean the same, and they're confusing to people because they're thinking that they're going to have an address that looks the same as the public address, but your private key can look completely different. This is where it gets a little confusing. So I have a Ledger Nano. My keys are 12. It could be either 12 or 24 word phrase. And when you again, we're going to go to a wallet, because I also have an issue with the word wallet. I can't stand it either, because for me, a wallet is something that you walk around with in your purse or your back pocket if you're a man. And if you lose it, you can call all of your credit card companies and get your cards canceled, and that's that. Okay, well, that doesn't happen with a wallet. Okay, with a wallet, if your wallet gets compromised and they have your private keys, it's gone. Like, it's completely gone, all of your funds. So really, the private key is the most important thing. You don't want to give that to anyone, including the ICO team or the tech team that owns the coin. If you get an email asking you for your private key, I don't care who it's from. If it's from Satoshi himself, do not give it out. Like, just don't, because it's a scam. Only you should have your private key. And a lot of people don't realize the gravity of that.
Explain to the listeners, is there a difference between a public key and a public address?
That is such a good question. So a public key and a public address, from what I know, is the same thing. It's the same thing. So your public key and your public address are the same thing.
Which is identifying you as, saying, okay, this is Nako's address, this is Nako's key. Now, if you were to look at it in a similar fashion, I still need to get into your apartment. That apartment key, that door requires 2 keys, your public key and your private key. But just to get to your apartment, I can have the public key, which is basically your address. I mean, right now you can say, okay, listen, this is my address, 123 Broadway Street, or this is my public key, which is basically telling you where the lock is. But I really can't get into that lock until I have the private key, correct?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So now,
confusing, but
yes, confusing. Now then we get to the wallet. Okay. So there are 3 types of wallets. There's a paper wallet, a hard wallet, and or it's sometimes called a cold wallet. So hard and cold, and hot and soft. Okay. And the paper wallet is pretty much an offline wallet. And I've never used a paper wallet, to be honest with you. So I don't have firsthand on how it works. But really what it is it's an offline wallet. You print it out and you print your keys, and, you keep them in a safe place, but it's offline, and it's old school. So a lot of the old school people swear by this. This is how they roll. I like hard wallets, or what they call cold wallets. So my preference is, well, I shouldn't say I have a preference, because I've heard great things about Trezor, and there are a couple of hardware wallets on the market, and they're all pretty much the same. I use a Ledger Nano. That's what I use, so I can that's the experience that I have with a hard wallet is with theirs. And a hot wallet or a soft wallet is on your desktop. And the reason it's called a hot wallet is that it's, in my opinion, they're less secure. And why do I say that? Because they're on your desktop. And in fact, a lot of the makers of hot wallets will tell you just to treat it like you would literally your wallet, okay? Where you put a couple bucks so that you can go shopping, as opposed to keeping all of your funds on your hot wallet. You want to keep the majority of your funds in your hard wallet. And this is why I have a problem with the word wallet, because I actually think it would have been the better term to use would have been something like a crypto account or a crypto safe. Like that, to me, would make a lot more sense. And when you get your wallet, every single wallet that you get, tattoo this on your head, okay? Or put it on a sticky and put it on your computer. You've got to back it up. You must back up your wallet. If you don't back up your wallet and something happens, like your computer crashes or, you get a virus or whatever the case is, you're going to lose everything if you have not backed it up.
And just to add to that, one need not back it up on the same machine. That's just putting all the eggs in one basket. You need to back it up on a separate machine, cloud, device, what have you. A very good methodology of backing up something like this is to do it the old-fashioned way. Go get yourself a nice notebook from your local stationery shop and then write everything down. Yes, it's cumbersome. Yes, it's tedious. Or even just take pictures or screenshots or print something out and paste it into that notebook. So at least you have a physical copy of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, what a lot of people do is the QR codes, they'll take a photo of the QR code, or they'll print the QR codes and then they'll put it in like a notebook. So they've got their backup as a QR code. And you can do that. You can back everything up like that if you like. In terms of storing your public and not your public, but your private keys. Okay. You can back everything up like that. Now, I just lost my train of thought. I was thinking of something in terms, the exchanges. Now, a lot of people, when they first start, will keep all of their money on Coinbase or Bittrex or whatever exchange, and they'll think that that's okay. And here's the thing. You don't own your private keys if it's on an exchange. So if they get hacked or something happens, and they choose not to give you back, give you your money, it's gone. So the make sure that whenever you make a trade or whenever you're buying your crypto, that you get your own wallet and you transfer your crypto from the exchanges. Do not leave your funds on the exchanges, because it's technically not yours if it's still there. So that's something else that a lot of people continue to do. They leave their money on the exchange.
Let me ask you this. This is the question that comes again and again. And yes, if it's on the exchange, the asset does not belong to you. It's marked for you, but it's not yours because you don't have the private key. The private key is with the exchange. The question that I have, and obviously every other person has, is if you are trading different types of assets and you do not have a Ledger Nano S wallet, or Trezor or something like that, then how do you transfer all these multivariant currencies and crypto assets to yourself? I mean, is there one wallet that has all of these enabled in it, or do you need a multitude of wallets to then download and keep track of?
That's such a good question. Okay, so all of the ERC20 tokens can be saved on the hardware wallets that have Ethereum, okay, that accept Ethereum. So, for example, all of my ERC20 tokens I keep on Ledger. I keep on the Ledger Nano. So all of them, and there are a ton, as you know, there are a lot of ERC20 tokens. Now, if the token is not an ERC20 token, then you've got to check out if the coin itself has their own wallet. So a lot of the big coins are supported by, either Ledger or Trezor. Even the hot wallets are now, they'll update every now and then. So if you go to Exodus, for example, they will allow people to submit requests. So if you don't see your coins being accepted by them, you can actually send a request and say, hey, can you please, support my coin? But if that's not the case, go to the website of the token, download their wallets, because most of them have their own wallets. And when you download their wallets, again, make sure you back it up, and then you can transfer the tokens to that wallet. But most teams will create a wallet that will enable you that will allow you to save your coins on their wallet, on their own desktop wallet.
So, but it is nonetheless a cumbersome process, because if you, like I said, it might be an ERC20 token, that's fine. But what about non-ERC20 tokens? What about things like, let's say, Tezos? Well, Tezos is not trading right now, but it will be. But what about things like, let me think of an example, Cardano, ADA, it has its own wallet, it has its own system. It's not an ERC20 token, if I'm led to believe, and so forth. And there are many currencies. Again, managing, downloading all those wallets, putting your tokens into them, and then the difficult part is that these wallets need to be synced, and they take some time to sync, and not to mention some memory, because they will sometimes download the blockchain, etc., and so forth. Isn't there a shortcut to this thing other than leaving it on the exchange itself?
Yeah, this is where there's so much opportunity in this space for other businesses to come in and offer these type of services. So one of the projects that I know called Ethos, if anyone's listening from Ethos, please, if you want to come on the show and explain what you guys are trying to do. But I believe what that team is trying to do is exactly what you described. They want to have a much easier way for people to store, a lot of their coins, their cryptocurrencies, in a very, user-friendly fashion. They're also going to have what they call cold storage services, so that they'll be able to store the coins for you, kind of like being a custodian, and have it offline. So there are a lot of opportunities to do this, because it is something that's lacking right now. And that's probably why a lot of the institutional investors are still sitting on the sidelines, because technically they, by law, again, correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody's listening out there that knows more than me, feel free to come on the show and explain how this works to us. But if they're an institutional investor, they're not able to actually keep the funds of their clients. Like, they have to have a custodian. So, they wouldn't be able to download, a Dash wallet and keep like a couple $1 million worth of Dash for a client. It can't be done. They need somebody like an Ethos or whomever is going to act like a custodian for wallets. The way that you're describing. So it's something that we need. We don't have it yet. And you're absolutely right. There's no other way other than like downloading, if you got like a dozen non-ERC20 tokens, you got to download them all pretty much, and have them on your desktop to store your crypto. Unless they are supported by the Ledger or Trezor. So Dash, for example, is supported, right? So you can just store your Dash in your Trezor or your Ledger Nano. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah. So, now in terms of an address, here's a huge misconception a lot of people have. Speaking of the exchanges and the addresses, if you have Bitcoin on Bittrex, for example, and you make a mistake by sending it to the wrong Bitcoin, well, you make a mistake in whatever, maybe you copy and paste it and you make a mistake. Let's just say that. And it's a large amount. Let's say you're transferring like $20,000 worth of Bitcoin, and you realize, oh my God, I sent it to the wrong maybe not sent it to the wrong address, but you missed a letter. Okay. There is something called a cross-chain recovery process that some of the exchanges offer, meaning that you can actually recover your Bitcoin if you make a mistake. Because many people believe that if you make a mistake, it's gone. It's like, in the ether, pardon the pun, and it's gone. You've lost it forever. But there actually is a way
There
to
has to be a
recover it.
caveat to this statement, right? I mean, if I am sending money to you and the address is correct, but I actually meant to send it to someone else, that address is also correct. But if I send it to you, I don't think so. A cross-chain recovery process can recover that money. I sent it to a bona fide address. It was sent. There were confirmations. Transaction is completed. I think what you're implying is if there was a address was incorrect, or if the address is not full, then the transaction might go into this ether black hole, and then the cross-chain recovery process may come out. Am I reading you correctly?
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. So it's like a mistake, meaning you missed a letter, you missed a number. So it's based on that, because if you sent it to somebody else's address, unless that person is like, oh man, let me send it back because I didn't expect this, that's never going to happen, But if it's a missing letter, then they have a way to recover it. They will charge you a fee, and I believe the charge is 0.1 BTC, but the amount has to be over $5,000 at the time of the transfer. So they're not going to do small amounts or anything less than 5,000. Now, I'm not sure if this policy is still in place, but again, this is something that I grabbed on online, and as we know, exchanges change their policies like their underwear. I mean, they're always changing things. So this is something that may not still be a policy, but here's the thing. If this is something that could be done technically, calling all developers who may be looking for a business idea, like somebody should have a recovery process or a cross-chain recovery process company, startup. I mean, how much money do you think they would make? Like there are hundreds of millions of dollars that have been lost in crypto due to human error, due to mistakes like this. And this also is for Ethereum as well. But the exchanges only, from what I've read, the exchanges only offer it for Bitcoin and Bitcoin forked tokens. Ethereum, I don't think any of the exchanges offer this service for Ethereum. But technically, I have heard, and again, if somebody wants to correct me if I'm wrong, but what I have read is that you can also do this with Ethereum if you make a mistake on Ethereum. There is a way to recover your ETH. But again, it takes a lot of technical maneuvering. It's not for the faint of heart, but it can be done. So here's my request to the community. If anybody wants to, has a business idea or is thinking of, man, I wonder what I could do for the crypto community, this is what you could do. You will make a killing. You will make a lot of money, because I can tell you the price of Ethereum has gone up so much. And there are people who have lost so much Ethereum that they will pay you a handsome fee to recover it.
Well, it's almost akin to all the coins sitting in the back of the sofas, and you have some sort of a magnet and you pull them out, right?
Yeah. I would love to see somebody offer that service. All right. So what's another? So did I explain the hard wallet and the hot wallet and soft wallet sufficiently? Do you think people have a good idea?
We'll get their feedback and see what they say, and then if not, they will take it on the next episode.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess we'll do that. All right. So now a fork. You hear this all the time.
This is a very important one, the fork, because it's not just about money, but it's also that you don't want to leave money on the table when the fork happens.
Yes. And we've had a lot of forks in this space, and some of them are contentious and some of them are friendly. So I was given this example, and this really made sense to me. So you've got a hard fork and a soft fork, and a hard fork implies non-backwards compatibility. Okay, so for example, Bitcoin and Bitcash. So Bitcoin Cash. So Bitcoin Cash is a hard fork of Bitcoin, meaning it's not backwards compatible. However, same with Ethereum Classic and Ethereum. Okay, so Ethereum was a hard fork of Ethereum Classic because Ethereum Classic, was the original, and then they hard forked it and continued the chain. So, but there are something called soft fork. So, probably the best example of a soft fork would be SegWit, right? SegWit was really a soft fork because the community, the majority of the community agreed, and it is backwards compatible with the main chain, if that makes sense. So in Word, like Word documents, if you sometimes when you get a Word document, sometimes it says .doc and sometimes it says .docx. It kind of depends. Like there are two versions of Word. So that's an example.
Yeah, that's the earlier version and the late and I guess the preceding Word versions after 1997 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's backwards compatible. So that's a soft fork. So the docx is actually a soft fork of the .doc, the original Word ending, the Word version. So this happens in other situations too. It's not just cryptocurrency where there are forks. And a lot of the times in the space, forks are based on philosophy. They're not just based on, the 51% attack. Because I think originally when people thought of the word, fork in cryptocurrency, it was based on the fact that, okay, if there's a 51% attack, we'll be able to, fork it and protect the integrity of the chain. But as we've seen, the forks recently that we're seeing have all been philosophical, right? People don't agree with how certain things are done, so they will do a fork. And one of the most recent forks that we've seen in Bitcoin has been something called Bitcoin Private. And this is where crypto gets really, it's sort of, I don't know what the word, it's interesting. It's fascinating because there are all of these different factions and different parties and different players. So Bitcoin Private is a fork of something called Z Classic. And Z Classic was a fork of something else called Zcash. So in this space, you've got forks of forks of forks. So if you go into what's that, GitHub, you can see the trees, you can see the different, where it begins. There's sort of this evolutionary tree, of, okay, this was the original Bitcoin. And it's fascinating because if you go into even Wikipedia and you see all of the forks of Bitcoin, it's really fascinating. You're thinking, wow, what's going on here? But this brings me to another term called the pre-mine. Okay. And you'll see a lot of coins declare that they haven't been pre-mined. Okay. And that's sort of a way of saying, we've got integrity. We haven't pre-mined anything. We're not going to be charging users a fee or a tax, as some people like to call it, for having this, chain that we've created or this coin that we've created that we think is better. And why am I bringing up the term pre-mine? I'm bringing this up because a lot of coins will use this as a reason to fork. And this is what happened with Bitcoin Private and Z Classic. They pretty much forked from Zcash because they didn't agree with the fact that the Zcash developers pre-mined the tokens. And pre-mining literally means that, they have a portion of the tokens that they keep right, for themselves. And they, have different reasons for keeping it. Some say, we're keeping this because we worked hard and this is an investment in ourselves and the team. And we think the coins are going to be very valuable. So we're keeping a percentage of those coins for ourselves. Some other developers will say we're keeping these coins that we've pre-mined so that we can stabilize the price. So they're sort of acting even as like sort of mini central banks, if you want to really look at it that way. They believe that they can stabilize the price by having a certain percentage of the coin. And so you're going to see all of these different philosophies in the space, and this is where the forking comes in. So if you're new to the space and you're freaking out that you're seeing all these forks, do not freak out or panic. It's normal. It's completely normal. And, it's not going to affect the price. It really isn't. At least I don't think it is.
Let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. So if you have a soft fork and a hard fork, right? Are these, is it right to say something like this? A soft fork and a hard fork?
Yes.
And one that is backward compatible and one that is not. If I had, let's say, before the fork happens, money, and a soft fork happens, do I get twice my money, or do I just get to choose once? And if a hard fork happens, how does that work?
Okay, I hope I understand the question. So
like, when the hard fork happened with Bitcoin Cash, if before the fork date, if you had money in the Bitcoin, blockchain ledger at that time, you also had the equivalent amount in Bitcoin Cash.
Yes. So yeah. So
that's my question. When is it that you won't have the equivalent amount? And when is it that you will have the equivalent amount?
Okay, so a soft fork is pretty much an agreement that everybody decides they're going to upgrade. In fact, a really good word for the term fork is an upgrade, because that's pretty much what it is. It's an upgrade, right? So let's say the entire community says, "Yay, we're going to do the upgrade," and everyone agrees. Then it's going to stay the same. Like nothing. You're not going to get additional dividends, if you want to call it that. You're not going to get another set of money, currency. But if there's a hard fork, then you're going to get another new currency. So in the case you brought up Bitcoin Cash, when Bitcoin Cash decided to do a hard fork, everyone that had it there, and what most teams do is they will announce a date. Okay, they'll say, and they'll give the date and the block height, and which block will be it's like a timestamp. I wish I remember the term. There's a specific term that they use, but they have a timestamp of when you need to have held Bitcoin, in this case, in order to receive the equivalent amount of their new coin that they're going to hard fork. So in the case of Bitcoin Cash, if you had it, before August, whatever, I can't remember the date, but they had a date that they gave people, and if you had that amount of Bitcoin, you would get the same amount of Bitcoin Cash. So initially, people were really stressed out about forks. I mean, it just freaks people out. Really, in the beginning, it did. But now the community is kind of looking at it like, you know what? Forks are going to be inevitable, and we're just going to have to deal with them. And, some people are always going to have a disagreement, and they can go on and fork from the original chain, create their own. That's fine. And we'll just look at it as a dividend. So there are people who have, quite a few, whether it's Bitcoin Gold, they've got Bitcoin Cash, they will claim these quote unquote dividends and not see it as much of a threat as they once had, because it just is the way it is. And if you look at the history of Bitcoin, there are a lot of really great projects that forked off of Bitcoin that are now doing extremely well. So Dash is a fork of Bitcoin. They broke off, and they've done a lot to their crypto, but the original, they forked. They're really a fork when you look at it technically. And Zcash is another really great project.
Well, isn't everything a fork of Bitcoin?
Yeah, I've said that to people. Like, I'm like, well, at the end of the day, everything's a fork of Bitcoin. But there's some who disagree. Yeah, yeah, they disagree. And their projects. What's that new coin? Where it's not even a blockchain, IOTA. Okay, so IOTA could be seen as its own thing, right? It's not a fork of Bitcoin. But people are going to have their differences. So next we have another. This is probably one of the most controversial, I think, is the ASIC resistance coins. You're going to see that term. And what do they mean by ASIC resistant? Well, ASIC is a chip, a modified chip that was created to specifically process the SHA-256. This is the algorithm of Bitcoin. And why this was so controversial is because it gave those who had an ASIC chip in their machine an advantage, because that's all it does, right? So,
well, I mean, the slight technical definition is, ASIC stands for application specific integrated circuit. So whatever you program the chip to do, if you make the chip to count canaries, it'll just do that, count canaries, nothing more. If you make the chip to do whistle all day long, it'll just do whistle all day long. If you make it to try to attempt to break the SHA-256 algorithm, that's what it'll do. So it's geared to do a very specific task that you program it for. It's custom developed, and that's all it does. And obviously it has a huge advantage over the regular folks. So, for example, if you have a Formula One car, is meant to go around a circuit really fast. That's the only thing. It's not meant to do groceries. It's not an all-purpose car. So if you have a Formula One car on the circuit versus a regular Corolla on the circuit, you can see how disadvantaged the Corolla is, because it's not application specific for the track, and the Formula One car is. That's the kind of analogy that an ASIC chip has over a regular computer or machine that you may have.
Beautiful. That was a great analogy. Yeah. So that's exactly what it is. It's people felt like it was cheating, and they kind of equated it to that. So yeah. So you will see these terms that and people tend to like that, because they feel that the whole purpose of crypto is for the little guy, right? It's for the little guy.
It uses inequality, you see, because an ASIC chip starts at about maybe, I don't know, $1,300, $1,500, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000. So it induces inequality. The minute it's, so again, let's go back to the Corolla and the F1 example. How many people can afford an F1 car? Only the rich ones can, or even lease one for a day on the track, etc. How many people have a Corolla or a Corolla equivalent? Many, many, many people have it. So when you induce inequality, needless to say, the other person has more computing power, more horsepower. They can do more things. They can take control of more percentage or shares of the pie than you can otherwise.
Exactly. Well said. So, are there any other terms that you think that people sort of have a misconception about, or?
So I would like you to maybe talk a little bit about some of the trading terms, because I feel everyone is in it for trading, at least in the short run, And if you could maybe amplify or give some example of some of the trading terms, that would be great.
Sure. So one of the most famous ones that people will see a lot is to the moon. Okay, everybody loves a coin that's mooning, that's going to the moon. And this really just...
And that's not mooning as in taking a trousers down and showing your ass to someone. Mooning means it's just going ballistic. The prices go to the moon, all the way up.
Yes. All, yeah, exactly. To upward momentum. The price keeps climbing. You believe in a token that's going to go up one day. So, you're betting on it going to the moon. Another term that's often used is whale. And this is from the regular trading world. They use that term as well. But it really is, it's a trader with a large account. And it could be in more than one currency, not just one cryptocurrency. And the person is usually very bullish in general on the price of a particular cryptocurrency. So they will buy quite a bit of it. They'll have a huge bag of multiple currencies or one particular currency. And anyone can really be a whale. I think in the traditional world, whales are usually, the institutions or, the really big guys. But in crypto, if you got into an ICO and it was 4 cents and you bought a ton of it, but you're still, a pretty small player, you're a whale in that particular coin. Another one that is very, very popular is Hottel. In fact, we love this term. I love this term. and Hottel, sometimes people say it's hold on for dear life, but really the meaning is from a drunk post of a Bitcoiner. He posted something on Reddit. Yeah. And he misspelled
it. He meant to say hold, right?
Yeah. He meant to write hold. And it's just such a funny rant. Like he's sort of ranting about the fact that, and this was, I think, 2013. He was ranting about the fact that, the price is going down, but he's still going to hodl. He's still going to hold, but he just couldn't spell it right. And that's why he
could not hold on to his liquor, and hence the mistake.
Yes. It's very funny. We'll put it in the...
And it's turned into a subculture almost, right? So, everyone uses the term. Many people don't know about the idea, but still, it's one of those things that everyone knows about, but don't know why they're saying it.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll put a link to the show notes so people can actually read the original Reddit post. The other one is Fomo. And I think this is used in other instances too, outside of crypto, but we use it a lot in crypto because this is pretty much the lifeblood of crypto is FOMO. This is what drives the whole space, I think, for the most part, is fear of missing out is what the acronym stands for. Or, what I like to call panic buying. So instead of panic buying, people FOMO. The opposite of FOMO is panic selling. So a lot of emotions, and which brings me to the next abbreviation that we use a lot is FUD, which stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And you'll see a lot of FUD as well in the space. There's as much FUD as there is FOMO. And FUD tends to bring about bear markets, which were, again, this is word from Wall Street. Bear market is, when the sentiment is that, things are going down, and the people that are often excited, I would say, about the bear market are investors and traders who are actually betting on a particular currency or market, going down and profiting from that. From the actual coin either going down or the market going down. So although crypto, it's a little harder to, I think, profit from a bear market or to be a bear because there's just not enough liquidity and it's still a really, really small market. But there are a few bears out there. And then the opposite of that would be a bull. It's exactly what it sounds like. And again, this is borrowed over from Wall Street. So a bull market is, when sentiments are high and there's optimism, things are going up. Another term that I think is really interesting is tanking. Okay, so if something is tanking or tank, it's literally the opposite of mooning. And so when there's a crash in crypto, we'll use the word, that coin is tanking. Another one, which is hilarious, I think, is wrecked. And I didn't realize that this was actually something that was borrowed from another subculture, online subculture, but gamers use this term as well, which I learned recently. I didn't realize. I thought this was like a crypto thing. And it's spelled REKT. So it's a misspelling of the word wrecked, as in WRECKED, right? And it, means exactly what it sounds like, right? It's, it means you're being destroyed or ruined. And one trader and Bitcoin on Reddit, okay, I had an example of someone getting wrecked, but I'm not going to talk about that. Let's move on. It's pretty self-explanatory what that word means. Okay, another one is DYOR, which is do your own research, and you'll see that on most blogs or commentary, people will say do your own research. I recommend this. I think this is great. I like it, but do your own research. So always make sure that you're doing your own research. When you listen to, Faisal and I talk about various cryptocurrencies or projects, still do your own research. I mean, don't, necessarily take every single word we are saying as the gospel. We're also learning.
And it's important to note we are not investment advisors. We are not investment strategists. This is why we have a disclaimer at the end of the podcast. It is about 3 minutes or 4 minutes long, but it is exactly that for this purpose, that if you are going to be taking our advice and running with it and then investing your college savings or what have you, and you go bust, please don't come crying back to us because we can't help you.
Yeah, exactly. Another term you'll see a lot is Lambo. And Lambo.
Oh, I love this one. and it's not an acronym. It's just literally short for Lamborghini.
Yeah. It's and I mean
Lamborghini. Why is it that Lamborghini why not a Ferrari? Why not a Mercedes? Why a Lambo?
I think because Lambos are the most ostentatious. Like they're the most flashy. I'm not a guy, but I'm assuming that, most teenage boys, when they think of the car that they dream of, it's a Lambo, right? I don't know. It's definitely not. I'm a woman. I can't even relate. I cannot relate to the Lambo thing. It's like, Yes. For a woman, it might be a Birkin bag. Maybe that. I don't know.
And for those of you who don't know what a Birkin bag is, it's good that you don't know what a Birkin bag is. Trust me on that one.
Yeah, they're very expensive. Okay, so fiat currency. This term is used a lot. So people will just say fiat. And fiat literally means the US dollar, Canadian dollar, Australian dollar. It's dollars that we use that's backed by the government. Okay, so, but it has a very negative connotation in this space.
Well, it is, negativity aside, it is important to understand that there is a difference between something called the fiat, which let's say the United States dollar, and something called the USDT, T for tethered. The two are inherently very different. One is a stable coin, or allegedly it's a stable coin, and the other is a dollar note that is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. So don't be fooled by both of them as that they are both the same. They are not. They're two inherently very different financial instruments.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, that's definitely true. And there's so much controversy around Tether these days, but that's for another podcast. Okay. And then the last term is Satoshi. And Satoshi is what we use when we're trading. Okay. Well, I shouldn't say that, because most exchanges will have the US equivalent as well. So you'll be able to, make your trades in US dollars. But once you really, at least for me, like when you really start getting into trading and loving the space, you'll start thinking in Satoshis. One day you'll wake up and you'll think in Satoshis. It'll freak you out, but it'll happen. And what a Satoshi is, it's the smallest unit of Bitcoin, named after the creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto. And again, Satoshi Nakamoto is a pseudonym. It's, we don't know who they are, he, she, it could be a group of people. Some people think it's actually a group of people and not one person because, it's just such a genius idea and really requires a very multidisciplinary type of approach and thinking to come up with what he or she or they came up with. So one Satoshi is worth, how can I say
a Satoshi
this?
is the most elementary unit of currency in the Bitcoin. So think of Bitcoin as a dollar. If you ask one person holding $1, how many cents? Let's say 100 cents. So we have two things here. We have a ratio, 1:100, and we have the association, $1 equals 100 cents. So one Bitcoin equals 100 million Satoshis. Satoshis are the cents equivalent in the Bitcoin world.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that analogy. I was trying to think of how can I say this on the air because it's so
It's
many.
the cent equivalent. It's a cent equivalent. So one Bitcoin, 100 million Satoshis. So rather than having 100 Satoshis, Bitcoin is divisible by so much that, if, for example, Bitcoin becomes worth $10 million, just example, wouldn't we all love that? And a burger costs $4. How do you give me 0.000000? So you don't give me that. You basically give me, let's say, something like 4 Satoshis or 8 Satoshis or 80 Satoshis and so forth. And that would be equivalent to $4. And that's how the elementary unit, works. It's the same way as the lira used to work when the Turkish lira and the Italian lira used to be there.
Yes, but I think the way that it's done, it's not user friendly. It really isn't. I mean,
Well, and I don't think so. It will be. I disagree with you that we'll start thinking in terms of Satoshi. I mean, today if we even accumulate all our wealth in terms of gold, no one actually says, "Oh, I'm Nako. I'm 32 grams, bro, baby. 32 grams." I mean, no, 32 grams means nothing to me until I start equating it with the U.S. dollar or equating it with the currency in which I make my salary in. And that is how we are going to change it. It hasn't changed over the last 500-600 years. I don't think so. We will be changing it anytime soon. It is the utopian dream that we will start thinking Satoshis and so forth. But let's be realistic. It's not going to happen. Not at least not in my lifetime.
yeah. Well, I think if we were to, outside of trading, because I don't think of it when I'm grocery shopping or anything like that. It's only when I'm looking at where did I get in on the trade? How much Satoshis did it cost me, and how much Satoshis am I making, regardless of where the U.S. dollar is. I don't look at the U.S. dollar anymore. I always look at how much Bitcoin do I have. How much Bitcoin is this coin worth? So all of my altcoins, I actually convert them to Bitcoin, which is weird.
Yeah, but then again, it is weird. But you have to understand you're looking at half of the equation, because at some point in time you either must have taken the dollar equivalent and converted it to Bitcoin or the other alt currencies, or at some point in time you would be interested to converting it back to the fiat currencies, and you would like to know what was your gain when you started this entire exercise, and did you really make money or not? For most people, they really don't care, but for astute investors and people who keep a track of things, then the entry and exit points of the currency pair does matter.
And I think, that's about it in terms of, there are many other terms, by the way. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are a lot of other trading terms that we didn't go through. And maybe, on other shows, we'll talk about other terms. But yeah, what I love about this space is that there is a subculture. It is a subculture in terms of, having its own terms and history behind the terms. And there's a lot of humor. There are a lot of memes that use the terms. So as much as it can be very stressful at times in crypto, there's a lot of humor, a lot of humor. And, people joke about everything under the sun, and Twitter is a riot. If you're not on Twitter following some of the crypto people, yeah, I recommend it because you'll get a good laugh. People definitely know how to laugh at themselves, which is really refreshing in a space that can also be really, filled with vitriol at the same time, right? It's sort of two extremes. So that's, I think in conclusion, really what I can say is that, learn the terms. I think that they will help you, feel a sense of community, because it is a community of people we're kind of still outsiders, right? We're still seen as a bit crazy by the mainstream. But I think when you learn the terminologies, and it will better help you navigate the space, and you'll also enjoy it more, because at the end of the day, you want to have fun, because it is a lot of fun.
And on that note, we'll say goodbye, and hopefully we will, be back on the air next week. And if you have any questions or comments, please, send it to us. It's behindthecoin@aroundthecoin.com or btc@aroundthecoin.com. If you wish to email us directly, you can use our emails. Nako is NAKO@aroundthecoin.com, and I am Faisal, which is FAISAL @aroundthecoin.com. Speak next week, and Nako, you have a good one.
Yeah, have a good one. Bye-bye.
The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the hosts, co-hosts, and guests appearing on the show, and do not necessarily reflect the view of the owners and producers of the show. Paid advertisements in form of audio announcements may appear throughout the show, including this one. Advertising can also include print and other digital formats. The owners and producers of Around the Coin do not endorse or evaluate the advertised product, service, or company, nor any of the claims made by the advertisement. All programs are subject to a one-time charge for professional editing fees, for which the interviewing guest or guests may have contributed towards. The owners, producers, hosts, co-hosts, and guests on the show are not financial advisors. Any investment advice or opinions cited during the show is for information purposes only. None of the content is intended to be investment advice. Seek a duly licensed professional for investment advice. If you believe there's been any violation of your copyright, trademark, service mark, or any other type of intellectual property, please inform us in writing by sending an email to legal@aroundthecoin.com.